Hi everyone and welcome to AltVR. At this YouTube channel we are showing you alternative and experimental applications in virtual reality. And in this episode, which is a tutorial episode, we're going to show you how you can partake in such creative endeavors yourself. So a few weeks ago we released a video where I had recreated my physical apartment in VR. And we didn't just recreate it, we also calibrated it or synchronized it in 1:1 scale to my real apartment. And this has some really interesting effects because normally when you're playing a VR game, you have maybe 2 or 2 by 2 meters available of play space. But in this way, we are able to utilize our whole apartment. So you can walk between the rooms, you can lean against the walls, you can lay down on your couch. Yeah, it's just a really interesting way of experiencing VR that is more tactile and immersive because you can use real navigation in a powerful way. So we are releasing this tutorial because a lot of people wanted to be able to do this yourself. And we are super excited to see what you guys will create by this, because this is only the template, right? We use this to create a memory palace, but you may want to turn your apartment into a first-person shooter game or a puzzle game, or just have 20 different TVs around in your virtual apartment or whatever. So we are making this as call for experimentation. We are really interested in seeing what people will create by this, and therefore we are also making this tutorial very accessible. You don't need any prior knowledge before going to this tutorial. We are going to show you everything, and it's not too hard, I promise. So let's just get going. The first thing you're going to want to do is to download Unity. Now, you can find Unity at this URL, which I put in the description, or you can just Google download Unity and get to this page. Once we are on this page, we get 2 choices, either choosing a Unity to download or download the Unity Hub. We're going to download the Unity Hub. So when you have downloaded Unity Hub, installed it and opened it, you're probably ending up in the preferences pane where it says something about you requiring a license to use Unity, or you are in the general overview of the project in the installs. Either way, we're going to have to activate our Unity license by creating a Unity account. Now, this is still free unless you are making like 100 grand in selling VR apps, so not to worry. We're just going to go to the account pane here and go to sign in, where it says that if you don't have a Unity ID, please create one. If we click there, we just have to register our email, etc., usernames and so on to create the Unity ID. So do this and then log in. Now, once you are logged in to the Unity Hub, you should be able to see your initials up here, which means that you're now logged in and things should be fine. You may, however, have to activate your license, and you do this by going to the settings and going to license management, where you either activate the license here, or you notice that here is your personal license. Now, it's time to install Unity itself. So you can do this by going back from the preferences and into installs. Now, I already have a few versions here, but I'll install one just to show you how it's done. You go to add, and you can choose the latest official release, which in our case, or in my case, is 2019-4. Now, this is really important. You do not have to download Visual Studio, but you can if you do. This is an IDE for software development. What is important, however, is that you make sure to include Android build support. This is because Oculus Quest is an Android device, and we're going to need this to build an application to it. It's also really stressful to add this later on, so make sure that you do this now. So make sure this is in place, and then just click next, and yeah, that should be it. Now, once you have installed Unity, you should be able to see it here in the installs, and there should also be a small icon indicating that this version of Unity also supports building for Android. Now, you can go up from the installs up to the projects, and we're going to define our project finally. So go to new and choose 3D, and then call this something sensible like virtual apartment, and click create. Now, this will open Unity inside our new defined project. All right, so once we are inside our project in the editor, I should explain what these various things mean. So in the center of our project here, we have the scene view, and this is showing how our virtual environment is appearing from, yeah, sort of like a godly perspective. And we see right now it's quite empty. We only have the horizon behind here. We have a light, which is glowing a particular way, and we have a camera. When I'm clicking at the camera, I can see a camera preview. And what is important to realize is that the camera inside the virtual environment that we're creating is basically the eyes of the observer inside the scene. So what you're going to see when you are trying out your app for the first time will be the perspective of the camera. So we can see the camera preview here, but we also have the game view here, which is showing where the camera is looking. So we can also choose these things from the hierarchy on the left. So if I'm clicking on my camera, you see it lights up, and the same thing with the light. Now, we also see that I can change the position of the camera and of the light. And I can either do this through the scene view or in the inspector on the left, which is opened for each object as I click it in the hierarchy. So this is really nice just to know that we can change the position of things inside the scene. This doesn't really require any programming. Of course, we can do it through scripts as well, but we won't be covering this. So this is how we are going to place our various walls, doors, and objects through either moving it about like this or changing values in inside the inspector on the right. So for now, we don't really know what we're going to create. This is going to depend on your apartment. So what you're going to need is to measure your apartment and find out this measurement. Then we're going to take it to the next level. All right, so now you got your measurements for your apartment, and if you have them written down in front of you, you're ready to go to the next step. So within the hierarchy here on the left side, we have the possibility to introduce three-dimensional objects into our scene view, which we can then modify. So if you right-click within here, you get the option to introduce new 3D objects. So we're going to start with a plane, which is going to be our floor. Now, it isn't super important that this matches your exact floor within all the walls, etc. So I'm just going to put 10 along these at the X and C axis. And yeah, we basically have a really large area to work with. So the next step would be to get up some walls. Now, in my case, my walls were approximately 5 meters long for each of the room with some variance. But to do this, I'm going to right-click and 3D object, and I'm going to select a cube. We could also select, I'll show you a quad, which looks kind of more like a wall, right? But I found that it's easier if you have AI elements like robots, etc. inside your virtual apartment that they escape. So having a cube and then giving it some more depth is better. So if we have this, we can reset its position so that it's in the middle of the space. And I find that a depth for walls is, which would be here, 0.1 is quite appropriate. Now, regarding scale, what I find is really great about Unity is that its scale is basically in meters. So if you want 5 meters, for instance, I'll just type in 5, and that should equate to approximately 5 meters also. Now, having done this, we see that the wall seems to be long enough, but it's not very tall, it's quite short. So to change this, we are going to change the value of the y-axis, not from just 1 meter, but to anything you like. You don't really have to measure how tall it is inside your actual apartment. If you prefer to have some more room above your head in the virtual, then just go for it. I'm going to choose about 3 meters, I think. Something to notice here is that when I did this, it increased its height sort of in both directions, as it were. So the wall is now going beneath the grid, as you can see here, which is now above us. So there's probably a fancy Unity way to do this to make it line up there, but I don't know it. But you can just drag it up. So another thing we should do is also just reset the position of the plane. Let's see. Yeah, then it looks more appropriate, and we can also use that as a reference, of course, for where the floor is. So now that we have this wall, the rest is kind of intuitive. We just need to make more walls, and we need to make one wall for each of the walls in the apartment, and that's just about it. Then we have the outline and can start introduce elements into it and actually make it into a VR game. So to do this, you can, for instance, if you have walls of similar size, which we usually do, you can just duplicate these cubes. You can choose them in the hierarchy and, for instance, do Control-D. There are also some nice hotkeys to know in terms of manipulating the transform variables here. So E, for instance, will give you the rotation. So before you're sort of able to rotate these things in your mind and actually know the rotation position, it's maybe useful to drag it along this line, and you can see, oh, okay, that's 93 degrees. I'll just write in 90. And if you click W, that takes you back again to the normal transform position, which you can make and drag it back. So if I do this, for instance, I'll basically have the start of my living room. And you might want to have to make doors. We're not going to make super fancy doors right now, more like holes in the walls, but this will be determined by your actual measurements. So before the next step, you'll just have to recreate your apartment in this manner, create the walls, design it for the scale, for instance 5 meters or whatever you have, and actually place these around as they appear in your apartment. So if you've made your walls, rotated them and positioned them so that the configuration looks something like your apartment, then you should be good on your way. In my case, it looks something like this. Here's my living room, there's the bedroom, this is more like a hall, and this is where I'm sitting right now. And this is the kitchen, and I've excluded the bathroom because I'm not going to use VR in there, but it's whatever for you. Now, it's still very white, it's unfurnished, there's not a lot of stuff going on, so we're going to try to make this a bit better. For instance, we can start with the floor, just to show you how this is working. So we're going to need a texture for the floor. We're just going to use an image. It works quite well. And yeah, you can just go to Google and search for these things. So I've typed in floor texture seamless. Seamless is important because then we can reuse it and download. So there are different sites for this, and you can have subscriptions and whatever. I just like to prototype very easily and very quickly, so I just go straight to Google. But then, yeah, download that image, and I'll show you how you can put it into your Unity assets. So the assets is in the project pane down below here. The only pane I think that we haven't really been discussing that much that we'll use. And yeah, you have different folders. I have too many disorganized folders down here, but you can create your own folders and add files. So you can basically take your file. I downloaded mine to the desktop, and you can drag it in here. So to add this to, for instance, the plane that makes our floor, we can just highlight it and drag it over. So that's very simple. However, it appears that it's trying to fill this image across the whole plane, which of course looks a bit weird. So it looks like I'm living in, a small dollhouse or something. To change this, you can select it over here and go down to tiling, because here we have the possibility to replicate the image across the whole plane X amount of times instead of just one time. So if I put in 10 by 10 here, it looks a bit more normal, like a normal parquet floor. The same thing goes for the walls. You just have to apply a texture that you like to the various walls and play a bit with the tiling and offset. I can give you an example. I choose this wall, add the texture. And again, you may want to play a bit with the tiling. There's also an offset here if you find that it doesn't work exactly in the various corners and instances. You can just play around there. So you can do this with all your various walls, and then we'll start with furnitures. Alright, so if you feel happy with how your walls are looking and your floor, I didn't really change much here, then we can go on to the next step, which will be adding furniture, for instance, like couches, TVs, bookcases, or if you have a special idea in mind, maybe you don't want your apartment to look like a real apartment at all, you can find what you're going to populate your environment with. So to do this, the most easy way, you can go to poly.google.com. Now here's a lot of user-generated content as well as just content from Google themselves that are free to use, especially if you, for instance, in my case, making a video, I might have to credit the artist, but apart from that, you can just download and use it. Luckily, for a lot of these, they are very low poly, which means that they have few polygons, less triangles for your Oculus Quest to render, which is also very useful. But for instance, we can search for couch or sofa. Yeah, and there we have one, right? By Danny Bittman. And we can just download this. I prefer an OBJ file. That works well. You can just drag it straight into Unity. Now, these come in a zip folder, so you just have to unzip it first. WinRAR trial, yeah. And then you have the folder here. So you can just drag this whole thing into your assets. And where did it go? There we go. So again, you can just drag it inside your virtual apartment. Again, in regards to scale, objects are not the same as walls. They do not adhere to any form of real scale. At least it doesn't seem so. And it also varies. So some objects may be seriously 10,000 times larger than your apartment. In this case, we were quite lucky. It looks like a decent couch. Maybe it's a bit small, but you'll notice that better when you actually place it here. I think I'll have to maybe double this one on all its axes to make it a bit more appropriate. Yeah, but then you'll just place it. So you can do this with all the objects that you want in your apartment. There is a lot of things at Google Poly, for instance, bookcases. Yeah, you have a lot of stuff, or bed. You can have a nightstand, and even your gaming computer, I think. Yeah, exactly. So you can just do this and furnish your apartment, and we'll take you to the next and actually last step, being able to step inside your creation. Because now we've gone through how it is like to actually use the Unity editor to create a 3D environment, and we just need to be able to step inside of it. So that's the last step. All right. As you can see, I have inserted a bit more 3D objects into the apartment, like a table, chairs, a carpet, a fireplace, and a lot of stuff. So I hope that you've done the same, because now we've come to the last step of the tutorial, which is to integrate this into your VR headset. So you may remember from the beginning that we had a camera inside the scene. We're not going to use the traditional camera that Unity operates with. Instead, we're going to use an Oculus camera. So you can delete that one. I already have, so there's no cameras rendering. When you've deleted it, you can go to the asset store. And now we're going to download something from this integrated store into Unity, which is free and is something that Oculus is providing for developers so that they can develop for Oculus. So you can go into this. It's just the first thing that's going to pop up, and you can probably, for you, it will say download or import. For me, it says update, but it's the same thing. And yeah, once we have this inside, I'll show you what you're going to do with it. Okay, so if you've downloaded your Oculus assets from the asset store and imported it into your project, you should be good to go. You can then find your Oculus folder in the asset folder. Let's see here, and you can go into the subfolder VR and further into prefabs. Now, here I'm going to choose the OVR camera rig and insert this into my scene. So there we go. And this is really the trick of synchronizing or calibrating your apartment. You're going to place the virtual camera where you are going to start the application in real life, in your actual apartment. So for me, I'm going to put it between these two doors. Let's see here. Something like that. And that means that this is the exact spot that I'll have to start the application at. Okay, one more thing that we should do is to add controllers to our camera rig. So we are already in the prefabs folder here. If not, you can just go to Assets, Oculus VR, and Prefabs. And there you can see the OVR controllers. Now, if you find your OVR camera rig again in the hierarchy here or in the scene view, we can open this and we see that there is a left-hand anchor and a right-hand anchor. And we can just add the controllers within these. So now we've done that. If you click at the one, for instance, now I'm in the left hand, but I see that in the inspector here, this is the remote that is being tracked is the right one. So I need to click the left. Now it says mixed, and I'll take off. So now the left is the left here. And let's see, the right is the right. So then we have the controllers set up. We're not going to use any interaction, like I said, but it's really nice to be able to see your hands inside the environment. All right, so we're ready to build the project to our Oculus Quest. You need to plug it into your computer using USB cable. When you've done that, you can go to File and to Build Settings. Right now I am in Unity 2021-3 F1. If you have an earlier version of Unity, you may have to do some other choices, but there are plenty of videos showing you this. I think it should be relatively similar, however. I just chose 2020 because I know there are some new settings and most people are probably using the latest version. So the first thing is that we can see the scenes we have in our build. We only have one scene. In my case, this is called the main scene. But to add scenes to your build, you can just click Add Open Scenes if you are inside your scene right now. Also, you may remember that we installed the Android build tools in the start of this tutorial. This is when we get to use it. So don't choose PC, Mac, or a Linux standalone, choose Android. And here you can also hopefully see the Oculus Quest that you have connected to your computer. When you have chosen Android here and you've added your scene to the build and you hopefully have your Oculus Quest running, we should change some other settings in the player settings, which are down here to your left. And the first thing you're going to want to do is to go down to XR plugin management. Now this is quite new. If this is the first time you're doing this, which it probably is since you're watching this tutorial, you may have to click install up here first. But when you've done this, it's very simple. You have to choose Oculus. When you have chosen Oculus in your XR plugin management, we can go up to player over here. Here there are a lot of options which you can play with. You can give yourself a company name, product name, version name. And if you scroll further down, you can also see a package name and a version again. But what is actually important to fill in is the minimum API level. And I think with the XR plugin management, the minimum API level has to be 23. But the target API level, you can always just have on automatic, which is the highest installed. There are a lot of other settings, as you can see here, but we're going to try to keep this short. And if you want to take a deeper dive, there are lots of other tutorials on builds on YouTube. So you can just lock this now, and then we can hit build and run. All right, so then that was done. Just gonna check here in the console. build complete with a result of succeeded. This means that we can actually try it on the Quest. So I got mine here, and I'll just show you how I'm actively using this method that we talked about to calibrate it so that it actually is matching. Okay, so for this part of the tutorial, you're going to need your Oculus Quest and one controller. So we grab this, and then you're going to choose the spot that you chose as your calibration point in the virtual environment. As you may remember, for me, this was between these two rooms. So basically, when you have the application open, which should be launched by Unity, you need to put the headset exactly where you had it in the virtual apartment. Now, I'm going to put it on the floor, and I'm putting my hand right there so it activates the motion sensor. Having done that, I keep my controller and I push down this Oculus button right here, which makes it reset the camera to that position. After that, it is calibrated and I can put it on. Alright, we did it. We're finally at the end. We're in the virtual apartment. There's the calibration spot we used. And yeah, this has some great benefits. You can do this, you can lean your controllers towards things, you can go around, you can sit down in the couch like this. And yeah, I mean, it's a new way to appreciate virtual environments. And if you actually implement something in here that you can use, you have a giant play space. In my case of like 60 square meters or something. Yeah, and it's a good feeling to be able to go between the rooms. Now in the very poor kitchen, I need to make something in here. Yeah, but we can go into the production room as well. And again, sit down in the couch. I haven't done much with the TV in front of here, but yeah, it would be interesting to have different applications in different rooms. And yeah, just whatever. There's so many things that we can do, and I hope that when you experience this yourself, you can turn to some ideation and actually, yeah, make some great stuff. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please click like to the video and also subscribe to the channel. If there are more tutorials you guys would like to have, then yeah, just give me a shout out and I'll try to make this. So thank you again, and please subscribe to the channel if this is your kind of thing. All right, cheers.